I'm so excited. Each one of these women I've met in leadership forums, in leadership capacities, where they were the ones leading me to the light in so many different areas. And with that, I'm going to start with our profiles of some of our speakers tonight. To start this off, Diana Ague, who studied law and criminology in London, but then pivoted to climb the corporate ladder working project and business management. She spent the last 15 years in various leadership positions, climbing the corporate ladder with technology and financial services. She has held varied roles such as project manager, head of PMO, COO, chief of staff, global head of strategy. And she's worked with revenues up to $500 million a year. Some of these being very household names, most recently with Capgemini, and then pivoting to now the CEO and Chief Listening Officer of Curain Healthcare Services, which specializes in home care and therapeutic care, one of the largest and fastest growing industries in the country. If you look at where the jobs are headed, that is where the jobs are headed, especially as our population ages in our boomer generation. In addition to that, she also has led gender diversity in all of these functions and capacities, while also being a leader when it comes to making positive change for the world with Positive Planet, a US nonprofit empowering women-owned women entrepreneurs and minority entrepreneurs to start new businesses. And not only that, she's a wife, a mother of two, and really wants to revolutionize not just the world, but healthcare industry to be more equitable and more compassionate. Amazing, 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 Diana. But we're not stopping there. No, ma'am. We have Miss Elizabeth Lyons over here. Did you know that Elizabeth is an author? Twice over, and contributed to so many articles. I follow her on so many things. She's also speaking tomorrow to IEEE. And as part of that, Elizabeth Lyons is the author of I Quit, Working for You Isn't Working for Me. And Hear Us Roar, Unapologetic Women Working in Corporate America. Her client list includes individuals from WorldPlay, TSYS, Microsoft, Amazon, Samsung, Global Payments, Bank of New York, so many Fortune 500 companies that you couldn't even name them all. And her typical client is in the high-tech, fintech, and financial and banking space. So if you want to get to know more about her, check out the links in the description. And finally, we're coming in to Gretchen Ruck. Gretchen Ruck is a senior managing director with Ancora Consulting, where as a trusted advisor to established boards, senior executives, and investors, she helps clients examine and address the impact of cyber threats, data privacy, regulations, and technology risks on their strategy and performance. As an innovative thought leader, Gretchen has been instrumental in shifting conversations concerning technology risk and cybersecurity from back rooms to boardrooms. Gretchen is also a frequent writer and speaker on topics ranging from emerging technology trends and cybercrime to advocating for diverse workplaces and inclusiveness. Her insights on current events have been featured on The Economist, Quartz, Bloomberg, Financial Times, USA Today, The Mirror, Law 360, and numerous other media outlets. And with that, I cannot wait for y'all to get to know our panelists even more tonight, all bringing in such diversity and experience, but all having worked at the executive level and beyond to create impact and an organizational change. So how are y'all doing?
Wow. Now I'm nervous. I was just fine.
Great. No, thank you, Stacy. I'm truly humbled.
It's interesting when somebody says everything you've done, or at least some modicum of it, to you. Doesn't it feel empowering? You're like, oh my gosh, I did do that, didn't I? Oh.
And we have to do more.
So I want to start off with the first question, because y'all are some amazing, amazing individuals. Have you ever been laid off? Or have you ever been close?
Mhm. Yes.
Yes. Who wants to go? I was laid off in 2013, I think. I was working for a tech company, and it was publicly traded. There were rumors that the company was going to be sold to another company, and the group I was in like an advisory role. And a lot of times, as I have experience within consulting, if you're going to sell a company, you want to really pump up whatever the products are and really downplay the consulting, because that's how you amplify the value. So, with that said, there were rumors, but I didn't assume that was going to affect our group because we were doing just fine. But it did, and they, so whether we were delivering or not, our team faced a bunch of layoffs, and, it was a bit of a surprise. And it's the first time that kind of happened. You're like, well, now what do I do? I think they had offered me 3 months of pay, and fortunately I was in a decent position at the time with a partner, and so we were perfectly fine. But yeah, it's still unnerving. And knock on wood, a few months later, I found something that really worked out really well for my next thing. But yeah, when you go through that kind of experience, no matter who you are, it can be very humbling. You can hear all the messages about it's not you, it's them, or whatever else somebody wants to say. It still has you go, wow, okay, that happened. So it's still a big impact. Who else wants to share?
I'll go. So I was laid off in 2009 with the financial fallout. And let me tell you a little bit about that. The owner of the firm that I worked for walked in, and I was like, hey, how you doing? How was Greg's basketball game? And he had this terrible look on his face. And I went, oh my God, are you okay? And then he started to mist up and cry. And I went, oh my God, are you okay? And he goes, I don't know how to tell you this. And I said, well, whatever it is, it's going to be all right. And he said, I'm losing the business and I have to lay you off. I floated your payroll for 6 months. And oddly enough, I was the one being let go, and I realized he was losing his whole life. And I started to transition him through my transition and be like, I can get another job, and you can just focus on you. And I don't know, we'll figure this out. And I mean, it was really something. And so I went home and I told my husband, and his company was on the brink of laying him off. And so twice a week we would have the conversation of, we're probably going to need to move because the unemployment here is 12%. And it was just a lot. So we actually ended up moving. Not just did I lose my job, packed everything in the back of a U-Haul van and moved and rebuilt everything.
Wow.
So yeah, I've been there. And actually I wrote, I quit working for you, isn't working for me during that time. I finished my book. That was my response. That was my total response. So it can be done. It can be done.
Wow. So, I mean, I'll just say real quick, I've never been laid off, but, I've been, I think, on the other side where I've been involved in conversations, and, just exactly what you described, Elizabeth, is horrible. When you have to go and have that conversation, or you have to make that decision about your colleague that you're working with, and their life is going to change, And, like you shared, you actually had to move. So not only did you lose your job, but you had like a major life change. Moving is like the worst. Like people even get divorced while they're moving, right? because you hate each other while you move. It was hard for me when we moved to our current house. As an aside, I was pregnant, so I made my husband do everything. I don't think he's forgiven me till now. But yeah, no. You really can't sleep the day before or for days, depending on how long because you're going to change that person's life. And I think one of the things that I've been able to do or take out of it is proactively trying to help people that have been affected. Not just being part of the conversations, but also just saying, hey, I have this friend, or I know this recruiter, or, let's come together and do this, and just trying, to make a difference. We've been successful a few times and sometimes not, but I think that going that extra mile as well, as much as you can, because most people tend to kind of remove themselves, sometimes partly from the guilt, but you should definitely try to support anybody, because like Gretchen shared as well, it's life-changing, and sometimes people don't have the financial fallback. So I just wanted to say that. But I could feel, even as you both told the story, I literally, it took me back.
I just wanted to also comment that, like, if these women were laid off, guess what? You being laid off has no bearing on you, how productive, how amazing, how everything that you are. At the end of the day, there are a multitude of decisions that have to be made in order to pick who it is. I'm going to raise my hand. I'm currently laid off. I was fortunate enough to have an idea, basically no, but nobody said anything to me at the beginning of November, through a bunch of ways that we're going to kind of go through. But, this is kind of getting into a particular area. Diana, Gretchen, Elizabeth, have you ever been in the administration of a layoff? What were your roles? What were your obligations? What goes into those kinds of decisions? How do you play that balance? Because that's another piece here, is that, it's not just about being on the other side, but at least in a few instances, sometimes knowing that your head is on the chopping block, even if it's not on the list, and you might be in the administration, what does that look like from an administration side?
It's not fun, that's for sure. It's like, I guess it's I've had to take part in it from that side a couple of times, and it's a lot of times, you could tell, whatever the company's story is about why they want to do this, it doesn't matter. It's people, and that's the thing. Even if you're high up enough that you can kind of understand it better or see it better, it still sucks. So, some of the companies out there, like where I've been part of this, like they want to get their EBITDA up. They need to get their stock to perform. And so they're looking for underperforming portions of the company. It's just, if they don't look at people, they're not talking about people. They're just, and so that's what's missing from their conversation, right? They know it's people, but they don't talk about it being people. So, I mean, that can be part of it, because it's like, I think their feeling is like, well, to keep the company afloat, we need to do this to get this performance right. We need to look at what parts of the company, and we need to look at performance. Sometimes it's sales team performance, sometimes it's, other productive kinds of, aspects of it, but that's usually how that works. We're fortunate that, the tech industry is constantly hiring, and that's great. And, they can feel better about the fact that people often will get jobs again, but, depending on so many factors, it can be harder and harder. And, interviewing sucks, and, you probably feel like you're getting gaslighted by employers, but it's still like, on the employer side of it, going through this is tough. The first time I had to do this was like after I'm not saying that I'm old, but after like the year 2000 bug thing, the Y2K, the company I was working for at the time was a tech company, and we had way too many technologists because that was a big part of what we offered was Y2K remediation. So we were letting people go left and right. And, I left that company as quickly as I could because it just like, it felt bad. And it just, the way that they were doing it didn't feel nice. And, as I got higher in my career, I couldn't just necessarily jump ship because I didn't like what they were doing. But, having seen it again and again, they try to make it less personal for themselves, the folks who are usually leading these decision processes. But, what we can hope is to get like a soft landing with it and find ways to network and get back to where we want to be as quick as possible.
Diana, Elizabeth, did you have anything to add?
So, I mean, I echo what Gretchen said, I think sometimes just being on the other side, there's all kinds of reasons. I think usually the easiest is to look at performance, which is usually based on a ranking, which is, obviously to a degree subjective as well, based on the manager, as well as perhaps some data that you have in terms of how you're performing. So usually, if I just give you guys like a random scenario, you would kind of select sort of what you call the lower performance. And, that makes it easier, right? From the top down, because to them it's like, okay, we're getting rid of the people that are lower performing. But again, like I said, and you may disagree with me, a lot of the assessments sometimes that we get, especially as women, you guys understand where I'm going with this, some of it is subjective. So who decided that you should score 1 out of 5, who decided you should score 2 out of 5, but nevertheless, you found yourself in that situation, usually the first people to go. And then, you may have a particular group that has been reorged, new managers come in, looking at things a little differently, or the organization is selling off that bit. There's just sort of, different reasons why this happens. So I really wanted to echo what you said earlier, Stacy, which is, forget that it's not you, it's them, it's me, it's them thing. It's not you. Just because you've been laid off from a job in the past, or you will be laid off, because it's becoming almost like a rite of passage now, especially in technology, it doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing. It doesn't mean that you're not good at your job. Obviously, we obviously want to aim to be the best, especially women. We're so hard on ourselves. We're high achievers. So I'm sure every single woman that's watching this or watch this later puts in the hours, does what they need to do. I mean, come on, most of us are moms. We take care of the kids. We do everything that we need to do. So we can do it. But there will be decisions that you will not have a say in. Some of it is based on the bottom line. Some is because there's a new boss in town. Some is because some part of the organization is being sold up. We can give you the reasons from now till tomorrow. But just, if you forget anything that we said here today, just remember this. You can do better. It will get better, even if it looks bleak, at the moment. And yes, there obviously are financial implications to this. And that's something to think about. And if you're in a position, and I want to mention this may come up later, but I want to mention it right now while it's in my head. If you're in a situation where you can actually have conversations about this and negotiate this when you're hired, you should. Just to make sure that you have the right package, because that can be done as well. So I'll let Elizabeth have a quick say.
I remember the day as a leader, I got the phone call that was like, give me 3 heads. And I was like, wow, that's crass. And so if you want to know what it sounds like on the other side of the phone, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And if you're a good leader at all, you know who that is. I think the toughest part as a leader was really looking at skill set and not looking at their personal lives and not looking at if I liked them or not. Because that was my opportunity to be like, great, off with their head. Super, get her out of here.
Right.
She might have been a phenomenal performer. It doesn't matter if I don't like her as a leader. So I really, I was in leadership a couple of times, and then I've been a career coach for well over 20 years. And so I was always one that got the first phone call, sometimes from employers. I remember one employer calling me and he was sick over it. And he was like, I got to let couple of these guys go. And so I knew. And he's like, would you help them with the transition? So I've been the leader, I've been laid off, and I've been the career coach. There's a tagline I'll use on my books, Elizabeth Lyons knows why you're hired, fired, or promoted before you do. And that's true. I often get the call. So, but I really do want to go back to two things. It really isn't you, but these kinds of gatherings are extremely powerful, that we as women come together, or we as a group come together and network and help each other. And when I talk about network, it's simply like, hey, what do you know about this company? What do you know about that company? You know, how's it going over there? What do you know about JP Morgan? What do you know about Bank of America? What do you know about, you know, like when I did networking calls, when I was in transition, those are the calls I have. When I have clients of mine, or even people that aren't my clients, I will say to them, like, you can have my network, tell me what you need. You wouldn't believe how powerful this is. So even if you're in the dumps, you're not going to die. You're going to find another job. You might make 20 grand more, honestly, but it's these moments where we can lift each other up and get each other going the right direction. So I'm a big believer in it. And I was really honored to be a part of this panel. I really was and am. I think it's a phenomenal group. And so, you know, this is that time. And hey man, I've been the one that I didn't, you know, I'm the one that does everything for everybody else. When it was my time in need, it was really hard to ask for help. It was really hard to ask for help and be like, hi, it's me. It took me a month to call people, which is ridiculous. And then when they were so generous, I would cry endlessly. I would just burst into tears. Like I didn't deserve it. Like we're all people, we're all in this together. You know, if you're laid off, it's going to be okay. And this is the time to connect, not to go in the corner and think about all the things you did wrong or what you said in the meeting. I mean, do that. You have to kind of puke that out, if you will, but then you got to walk it off. You know, you can be unhappy. Don't pitch a tent there. It's not going to serve you or anyone.
Case in point, Elizabeth, I have had like 10 serious interview, you know, getting really far. How many people do you think I've randomly run into in my interview cycle that weren't even the people that threw my name in, that I've just met, talked to, done stuff with? Five different people that I did not submit or let them know that I was submitting or anything else that I've run into that were randomly assigned to me as part of my interview cycles. That's what this does. You can skip a lot and get to the meat of, you know, what the job is. Are you the right person? Every piece of that.
Hey, Mike, I don't want to put you off at all, but this is the girls' club. There's a boys' club. Let me tell you what. And the more we don't cut each other down, the more we lift each other up, the more we answer that phone call, the more we connect each other. How do you think the man got promoted? For heaven's sakes, it's all in my book.
Right.
Get along. Everybody get along. It's not hard. It's not hard.
Oh, that's amazing. I've just seen your comment, Stacy. That is amazing.
I just wanted to say, like, you know, now that we've been in a layoff, we've administered a layoff. What are some of the common ways that apply to all companies as warning signs that a layoff might be impending?
If you're going to get laid off, you will notice you're cut out of emails, meetings, and projects, and no one talks about that. If you start to find yourself sidelined, all of a sudden, hey, why wasn't I on that email? Hey, why aren't I on that project? Normally I would be doing that. That's a sign. I mean, we can look at stock prices. Interestingly enough, the gossip internally is more telling than even the stock prices, honestly. Just know somebody in accounting or sales, they'll tell you, or know an auditor, they'll tell you too, they know. But if you want to know if you're going to be laid off, that's the one sign nobody really talks about, and it happens.
You know, I think that it depends on the kind of company, how big it is. that make a difference for if you're going to find any signs. Like public companies are more likely to do layoffs than privately owned companies, from my experience at least. And, again, if peer companies are doing it, as we've seen with this most recent round, then other folks are going to use it as an opportunity to clean house. So, I mean, those things are a big deal. But, the thing is, like, I think that if there's any chance of this being the case, it's like really good to go into this knowing what your self-worth is. Like people that work for me, I tell them that like they should keep their resume current, and they should, maybe once a year do a mark to market. They should figure out what they're worth. And if they do an interview once a year, like, I mean, great. I don't want to lose these people, but I want them to know what their value is. And if I'm undervaluing them, I want to do better by them. But also it's a good way for them to realize that, okay, cool, I'm still valid in the market. Are there skills I want to make sure that I really need to get better at, or is there something else I really want to perform with that would make me better suited? But this way, like, whether you see signs or not, you're really more ready to adapt because you really haven't just for 5 years been, comfortable at a company and just pretended like, hey, this is where I'm always going to be. Because, most of us are employed by will, which means that, we can leave anytime, we can be asked to leave anytime. So just really, at least once a year, having that kind of look back to see like really where you are, what things you should do. It's really kind of a pretty good idea just to make sure that if these things happen, you really know where you're going to land a little bit.
I love this. I love that. I think the two ladies kind of brought it together. I mean, you can look at, I think to your earlier point, Elizabeth, like, okay, what does the stock market say? And what is being put out there? And what are we hearing about the market? That's true. That doesn't always tell you, although, it's definitely like a sort of indicator. You can also look at things like, okay, people are leaving, my boss is leaving, because sometimes we don't pay attention to things like that. Like you're like, oh, my boss is leaving, his boss is leaving, his other boss is leaving, and oh yeah, no, you should kind of pay a little bit attention to if people are in certain positions that do give them access to hear information, pay a little bit of attention. But specifically, going back, I think, to what Gretchen was trying to talk about as well, I really think that we should pay attention to those internal emails when we get that, because sometimes we don't. Like, we should really read emails that tell us about what the numbers look like and what the the CEO is trying to tell us and share with us about the state of the company, about what the strategy is. I know because I help write a lot of those emails, but people don't read them, and we do put information in there to say, hey, we're 20 over 20, we're 16.5 this year. Actually, we didn't do so well in the advisory front. Oh, we didn't do so well here because we try to be transparent, but people don't read them. And so if you read them and you compare, especially if you're able to get information like that on a quarterly basis, you compare year over year. I know sometimes it's boring numbers and all that stuff, but try to read them, because it does tell you a little bit, especially for like smaller groups, or if you're part of a larger group or you guys are sort of fairly independent, you start to see how they're going. And you know what, one of the things that I've been working on myself, right, and I'm sure a lot of us are doing this, but self-awareness, bringing your authentic self to work. We've all heard all this stuff, but it works. So as part of being myself, I really try to just put love and light out there and just be happy. And you find that you will hear things. I forgot which one of the ladies said this, right? You will hear, I think it was Elizabeth, you will hear things from the accountants, from the auditors, especially the executive assistants, they're my best friends. They tell me everything. Sometimes they know more than I do, and I'm usually the chief of staff, and I usually know everything. And yes, I may not be able to tell you as well that certain things are coming. I may give you indication that certain things are coming. And so pay attention to all those little things. And I love what Gretchen said about, just being out there, right? Don't be complacent. Just, don't just be like, okay, I'm going to be here for the next 10 years. That's fine. That works too, if that works for you. But just know what's going on out there in the market. Like she said, test the market, have conversations, I make friends with, people, executive recruiters, kind of see what's going on in the market and just try to be aware. Again, I know this is obvious and stuff that we know, but are we really doing it? Like, we really need to pay attention, especially as women. We have to think of ourselves. We have to protect ourselves. We have to be there for ourselves. One of the things that I do a lot, any organization that I work in, I invest my time heavily in a lot of the internal panels or groups or organizations for women. If I don't find any, I create one, honestly. And again, you get information that way. We've saved many jobs that way. When I was at Capgemini, I created a group. I realized there was nothing bringing all the women leaders together. Like, we were literally all in our own world, and the men are united, right, Elizabeth? So I try to bring all the women together, and thank God that organization is still working till today. I saw them on LinkedIn the other day. We have to come together as women. I know we're busy, we have a lot going on, we can't be bothered, but we really need to come together. And I think senior women or women in leadership, as annoying as the other women may be, try to be more open-minded, try to be more, accessible, try to, and if you're a straight shooter, yeah, give it to them and just say, hey, listen, this is not working, let's do this. But let's help to share information with others. And, I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but I just wanted to really put that out there. We need to really come together, and we need to make sure that we are very aware. Let's not allow things to happen to us, but let's try as much as possible to be in control of what's going on around us.
So Gretchen, Elizabeth, do you have any obvious, hey, this company's going to have a layoff if these things are happening? Or I think of one more specific individual one where you want to know if you're going to be laid off or if they want you gone. Pip.
Yeah, I think, I want to touch on the tech layoffs for just a minute, because my mother used to say, God rest her soul, the devil's in the details. And it's true. And on my LinkedIn somewhere, and I'll find it if you want to see it, there was an article that really broke down these tech layoffs, right? The Amazon, Google, Meta, right? And when you really drill down, they cut all the contractors first, they cut all the H-1Bs second, and then what they cut, and I might misquote this number, but it was like 30% in HR. They overhired during the pandemic because they needed recruiters and HR people, and they needed all that to kind of get a handle on all these large businesses. So there's all this, oh my God, the world is falling apart, there's all these tech layoffs. No, maybe, no. I mean, and then when you looked at the numbers in January, we had some of this highest hiring time. So you got to be really careful reading the news right now while you're laid off, or if you're in a confidential search, because you're going to read on LinkedIn or Jamie Dimon constantly at JP Morgan, every other day is talking about the Feds and the rate and recession's coming. No, it's not. Now it's next week. Now it's the end of the year. Blah, blah, blah. There used to be a time in my career that I could look at Goldman Sachs and Jamie Dimon and a couple of the very high level players out there, and they knew the tea leaves, and they would report, and they were conservative in their reporting. And I could say recession is going to happen here, and it did. It's not like that anymore because of, sensationalism and all that. So I would say, the market's still very good, like really good. If you look at and get your sources from like reputable sources, like do not read, Fox and CNN, like get your data from the BLS, for the love of God. Like stop reading about, like really look at who your sources are here, because there's something behind there. ADP payroll, that's a great source for unemployment and employment. So I guess my point is, like, I don't want anybody on this call or that's going to see this recorded call to be laid off or in a confidential search and feel like, oh, it's all dried up, it's over. There's no jobs for me. There's no great jobs. It's not going to happen. It's not true. And I just want you to be careful of the media that you're consuming. And that's why I'm going to go back to this sort of stuff is powerful. Call somebody. What do you know about this company? They're hiring or they're not? What industry is going up or down? There is trends with that right now about what's going up and down. So it's like what Diana said. It's like we know this stuff, but you've got to really dig into the details of what's really going on out there too, because you'll be scared to death just reading headlines.
So another clear sign that you could be at risk of a layoff is if other people at your company are getting laid off. Like, I mean, it could be contractors, but it could be other divisions. Like I have friends at Google that are still employed, but they watched fearfully as like one group and then another, like it was like dominoes. But if you see other groups in your organization getting laid off, just realize that, whatever your employment status is aside, it could be coming. So it's, that's usually a very clear sign too. It's just like watching another group get laid off doesn't mean that you're in the clear. It means that, you could be next. So don't rest comfortable if you're seeing that elsewhere in wherever your organization is. It looked like there was a question about golden parachutes, right? I saw in the chat.
Yeah, there's been a couple.
Yeah.
People have barely been wondering, like, how do you negotiate a golden parachute into your contract?
Well, I think the first thing is you have to be a white guy. It's nothing personal, Mike. No, but it would help, I'm sure. No, I think that people, I think the term golden parachute is overused, and I think we all expect it to be a more common thing than it really is. It's, you read about golden parachutes, but this is really very much like top execs. When you're at certain top levels, you have like contract outs, because the idea is that in theory, you're earning big bucks, but you're also taking a lot of risk by taking these big roles. So, you don't have full control over how results will work out based on whatever your strategy is. So, what's your consolation prize? And so that's really kind of how the golden parachute thing works. If you are laid off and, your company will offer you some sort of package, and, your option is to basically to take it or not take it. There's sometimes a little room for negotiation depending on lots of things. Like sometimes they want you to stay to a certain date. There's like a retention piece to it, in which case you can negotiate that. If there's certain things that you can point out that, look, I need this for this amount of time for this reason, they may on a humanitarian basis be willing to negotiate. But a lot of times you don't really have much to leverage at that point, unfortunately. And when you come in, I think that unless you are setting an employment contract again, it can be difficult to make this clear or to really get into it. I mean, really, some companies will have in the employment agreement how they handle severance, as far as like if they give like 1 week per year of employment or 1 month or whatever else, but you could choose to take that job or not. But a lot of times, if it's a good job, we're going to take it. So, I mean, just padding your bank account to be ready in these cases is like really more likely the parachute. If you have RSUs, like restricted stock units, like a lot of times they can get released to you. Things like that might happen if you have any kind of equity, and that could be your parachute, but that's also you investing to make that happen, right? So don't throw around golden parachute as something that we should all expect. It can happen, but like there's things that you can do, especially again, if you're working for a tech company where you can get stock, whether it's restricted stock or not. It's something that will be available to you when you leave for sure. So that kind of equity or any other debt or equity situation like that's about the best luck you're going to have for that.
Right. Yeah. And just to be clear, I think in terms of like actual words, like Gretchen said, when you think about golden parachutes, you are really thinking to a very senior level. When you do join a company, you have the opportunity to, for lack of a better word, right, negotiate certain things, including the number of PTO you get. Most people actually don't realize that. They think, oh, I joined this company, they're going to give me 20 days. That's it, I'll take it. You can go back and say, hey, can I have 25 days? Can I have 30? Be very clear. They can say no. They don't have to say yes. They don't have to say yes to anything you ask. But I always say, ask, ask, ask. So if your mom or whatever the situation or whatever reason, or you just simply want more vacation time, say, hey, can I have 20 instead of 15? If you want to say, can I have a sign-on bonus, even if one is not offered to you? Whatever it is that you want or you think that you deserve, or perhaps you heard somebody got, listen, ask for it, including saying, hey, what does your severance package look like? HR may not want to talk about it, or they may give you sort of the required and say, hey, listen, it's 1 week per month, whatever, we can't talk about that. But ask and see if anything is possible. I say this because, again, to Gretchen's point, it usually will perhaps apply to senior managers or directors. Obviously, everybody here is probably at different levels, so you don't know what you can get. But don't go and say I want a golden parachute. You can try to get more from a severance perspective. Be very specific. But it depends on the company policy. They're not, some people won't even share that with you. Some people will share that with you, honestly. That's not something that you can go and make a request. I know somebody who was able to negotiate a severance package recently because he was going for a new job, and I mentioned to him. And I know 2 other people who they looked at them like, what are you talking about, right? Different culture, different organizations. I know somebody who said, hey, I want X amount of money. No, you can't get that. Okay, can I have 30 days of vacation? And she got it, so, but do your research. So at least you know what's out there, what's what you can kind of compare. And if the company really wants you, that could be good leverage, but they could also say, hey, listen, the answer is no. And then, you got to figure out if you want to continue with them, or if you're really so pissed off because they didn't give you a severance package that perhaps didn't exist, and then you're going to walk away. So going back to what Gretchen was saying, just be prepared for things like that. But I will say, listen, in the beginning, once a company has indicated that they're interested in you and they're going after you, and if you are lucky to be in one of those positions where they really want you, try to negotiate as much as you can, but be reasonable, and don't say golden parachute, because I I didn't teach you that one. Oh, okay. Let's see, Stacy just went up.
Yeah, and I just kind of wanted to say, like, with regard to negotiation, and I've been at all levels, I took and volunteered to take a package and negotiated extra when they had a layoff, and made it open to whomever would like to take it, even if you were not affected.
Right.
And I just looked at what my prospects were, and I was going, yeah, I'm taking this for a myriad of reasons. Just long story short, career growth wasn't going to be there. Right.
Right.
So that can be a leverage point where, if you are a high performer and, they, all kinds of things, they could be under money pressure, or HR needs to get rid of more people, and, they need 25% to resign and they cut 20, right? That can be a great leverage point. And that's true in the hiring stage as well. Company didn't want to pay me as much money. So I said, hey, drop me more stock, pre-IPO stock. I don't pay any taxes on it. I don't do any of that stuff. Vests immediately, or at least, after the first 30 to 90 days, whatever that is. Yep. And sometimes they can think of it as like, oh, well, that's free money, essentially. So they might be valuing it as like, internally at like $3 a share, even though, IPO, it might be $20 a share, right? So there's a lot of ways to get creative. And you don't have to be super high level to negotiate yourself into more PTO, to negotiate yourself into a good situation. So, and I'm going to say in one of those, I was just a senior developer, but I knew where my leverage points were. And I'm interested, Gretchen, Elizabeth, what are some of the things that you've done early stage to negotiate yourself into a good situation in case things turn?
I got to think about that a minute. I think, hybrid work environments are good. That's going to save you money. So you're not getting the paycheck, but you're not paying it in gas, dry cleaning, time on the road, tolls in Dallas. So I've negotiated that. I used to negotiate, now that I think about it, I used to negotiate my hours. I'd be like, I'll work 7 to 3:30. I want out of there. I don't want to sit in traffic. I wanted a life, I come in early and get out early. So I negotiated that quite a bit, and I never had a problem with that. I've negotiated PTO a few times. The last couple of job changes, I really, it was really more about people, process, and tools. If they didn't have some of that stuff, I wasn't taking the job. So it wasn't negotiating, I was vetting them scrupulously. And so I would actually throw that out there too. It's not just a negotiation on the back end, but really looking at what are your core values and what's really important to you. So like if you leave a relationship, there's a reason why you're leaving it, right? He doesn't pick up his dirty socks. He doesn't pick up the tab, whatever it is. And so the next relationship, you're like, okay, I want somebody that picks up the dirty socks and I want somebody that picks up the tab. So it's the same thing in a job. Like I really looked at that. And I think if you're vetting on during the process, that interview process is for you. It's not all about you being some puppy in a pound and getting to be liked and chosen. No, it's your interview too, right? So think about what do you really want different out of it? And if you say growth and they say, oh, we have that. Well, tell me, when was the last time you promoted somebody in your department? I mean, ask the questions. You're not going to inflame them or insult them. If anything, they'll respect you. So I think vetting it through the process is as powerful because you're not going to get to the back end of the negotiation and the things that you're maybe reaching for, like 5 days more on the PTO that may or may not be there. That's not really what's made you leave the last place or made the last place go bad. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's just to remind you that, again, the market's good. You've got more choices than you might realize, but to really vet that company.
I like the point that it's like, I mean, what I heard is from Elizabeth is that it's good to kind of step back and figure out what's really important. Like, you know, do you want to ask for $5,000 more in a sign-on bonus? Is that really going to make a difference to something? Is there something else that's more substantial? I can't like share specific details of like golden parachute type things that I've negotiated because usually you're not allowed to once you negotiate this, and we're recording this, so most definitely not going to share too many details like that. But you know, when you are joining a company, you know, and if folks are laid off and looking around, you know, you need to figure out like what knobs you can twist, you can tweak that folks may negotiate on. Just because you want more money doesn't mean maybe that they'll be willing to pay more, though they might. It's like you could look at bonus potential, you could look at sign-on bonus potential, you can look at benefits, time off, there are a lot of different things, you know, work location, but not every company is going to do all these. Like I've interviewed for places where they're like, yeah, we can't budge on the salary because here's why, like, here's what the position was set for in our budgeting cycle. But, you know, we really can negotiate on these other things. And here's the things that they are. Like if somebody wants you to come on, they're going to share this insight. They may not think of it that way until you really get into it with them. But, you know, maybe it's time off. Maybe, you know, like they wanted to start you at just a couple of weeks, even though you've got lots of experience or something. You know, these things you can work through, and any of the things you decide to negotiate, though, you know, don't just say, I want this, or I think I should get this. You bring it up saying, you know, for example, like if I'm leaving somewhere to go somewhere else, I go to keep me whole, to make this fair and even, I would like to have this signing bonus because I will miss out on the bonus I would have gotten at this other company. Or to make this work out very equitably, here's what I'd like to do. You know, and just things like that are something to consider. You know, there's some states that are making it illegal for during the interview process for the interviewer to ask you about like how much money you're making now, because they realize that it leads to inequity. You know, if you were underpaid before, you're going to get underpaid again versus, you know, listing the salary out. And so, you know, whether you're in a state that that's the case or not, you know, we know this exists. So if, you know, right up front at the beginning of the interview process, the interviewers are asking you the questions about how much you make now, they feel it's important to know it, then that could be a warning sign that you could be in a position where you're not going to be able to negotiate much, where you may find yourself like under earning compared to other folks. So these things are out there. But yeah, like also, as Elizabeth said, don't feel bad about asking hard questions. You know, if anything, people generally like them. If nothing else, I respect them. Like I usually ask companies I'm interviewing, you know, and I have this for years, like, hey, well, what do you guys do as an organization to be a good corporate citizen? Like, I want to know that the company is spending their charity money, that if they're giving time off, or they're supporting causes, that they're causes that align with my beliefs. You know, anybody can take time off to do something, but if the company is really behind the right kinds of causes, and you can see that, that's important. That's like money where your mouth is kind of thing. And, you know, I've turned down jobs because, like, as you know, somebody who's out, as, you know, I'm married to a woman, and like, if I'm talking to an organization and I feel like they're just not going to be equitable to the LGBTQ plus community, like, yeah, that's definitely a bad sign. You know, if they're supporting Hobby Lobby, I'll be like, yeah, probably not my organization. So, I mean, understanding these things will already tell you like whether, you know, you're going to get that lifestyle piece of the whole puzzle. And if that's going to be part of what you need to have, because like you have to pay me a lot of money to work for a company I hate. And I probably still won't take it, but then again, maybe I will if it's enough money. I'm going to be honest. So hopefully that's some good insight.
I think what's kind of interesting with all of this kind of negotiation information, you know, it brings up a lot of things with trust and negotiation in terms of like layoff information, or, you know, especially from both sides, like how much should you trust what you're being told, especially if things don't feel right. Kind of, you know, in some personal examples, when I've been through multiple layoffs, a lot of times frontline managers don't know. A lot of times even directors won't know until like a couple weeks before, right? Or can, right? And I feel like some people you can tell immediately in their demeanor change. But what, you know, what does the trust around that look like? You know, how do you navigate that pending state in terms of a layoff? Like strong feelings it's going to happen, whether or not you think it's you. You know, what do you do in that time space? Do you just kind of keep your nose to the grindstone, or do you keep your ear to the floor?
I cut my expenses and I trust no one. That's what I do. So I would run through all my expenses. I'm a spreadsheet girl. What's my talent? Negotiation and Excel. I don't do anything else well. I would love to tell you I can make a beautiful room, or, you know, set this, you know, I'm not good at any of that. So, really, when I get that gut feeling like something's wrong and what they're telling me, like it doesn't take a mental giant to know it's not going well, but I just saw the corporate email they just put out. I cut my expenses. I immediately go home when I get in my Excel spreadsheet and I look at what can I cut, what can I scale down, and I immediately move into savings mode and I look at what's there. Because I, you know, what happened when I left Portland, Oregon, it still would have happened regardless, but the reality was you had to get out of a place of high unemployment. It's going to happen again. And it was, but you know, if I had a pile in savings, I don't know, maybe I would have made that choice, maybe I wouldn't. But I remember looking at Portland, Oregon then and saying, it's decimated now. The next recession, it'll really be done here for good. And it is. It's really done there. So I think it's about taking care of yourself. I mean, somebody asked me some question on LinkedIn about personal brand. I'm like, well, personal brand is nothing but perception. And frankly, that doesn't belong to any one of my employers. That belongs to me. You know, like it's yours. Your LinkedIn account is your LinkedIn account. Your network is your network. And, you know, and talent acquisition, understand those words. They're buying you. Understand those words. So if they're buying you and you can be bought and sold, male, female, whatever, then, you know, you need to make sure that your own house is in order. So if I get any bad, weird feeling in a company, I immediately go home and cut expenses. That's what I do. I don't work harder either, tell you what. And I don't read more because it creates neuroses in me. So I take care of me. That's my response.
I mean, I would suggest like start getting as many interviews as you can, because like it doesn't matter if it's a job you even want, like the best way to interview is to practice interviewing. It's like when I've got, you know, one kid in college, one that graduated, but like as they were studying, you know, before taking ACT, SATs and all, how do you do well on those tests? By taking a million practice tests. How do you do well in an interview? By taking a million practice interviews, right? So just because you get interviewed by somebody, even if they love you, if it's not the job you want, that's fine. You know, just apply to everything, even if you're overqualified, just to get the interview practice. So, you know, because it's a different kind of talking. and, if you're not used to it, you're not in the habit, it's different, and I have fortunately not had to see or be exposed to any of the like AI hiring things that people have to do with now, but like I hear that's awful. And I mean, it sounds like it's to be avoided, but if not, again, like read tips, learn how to do that, practice interviewing with that as well. Just like anything else, it's another skill that you have to get down is interviewing.
+1 times a million to Gretchen. Just the minute you have an inkling, set yourself up, start putting in, every little piece that you think might come up. The modern interview cycle. Leak code is part of the tech screening process. It is. It wasn't 2 or 3 years ago. It is now, right? So if you are in a technical space, you need to probably do 1 or 2 of those a week just to keep yourself rolling, right? And, what Gretchen also talked about earlier, and Diana, and of course, Elizabeth, do an interview cycle every once in a while. I do one 6 to 9 months. Whether or not I'm happy.
Just do it at your desk at work so they know what's going on. No, I'm just kidding. But
I'm fine with them knowing, right?
Yeah,
get scared.
Stacy,
Get
Stacy,
scared.
you've got more chutzpah than most people. So like in that regard, maybe don't listen to Stacy. But in the other regards, do listen to Stacy.
Gretchen, you're right though. The technology's there. They're looking at your keystrokes anyway. You may as well just zoom it right on your work computer and talk to somebody else. I mean, she's got a point. I mean,
if the movie Office Space is to like be believed, maybe that'll like even wind up getting you promoted. What can I tell you? I don't.
Yeah.
Probably not though. Probably not. This is being
Probably
recorded,
not.
so I want to be clear. Probably not. And like if you have been laid off and you've got time to pass, it's there's time escapes. You're like, holy cow, I can't believe a week is gone, a month is gone. It's amazing how like I always wondered like what do people that are retired do? But like once you've been through like a layoff, you're like, oh, I get it now. Time just kind of happens. But it's like that's not always good if you need to be employed, right? So you have to keep a schedule to some degree. You can have some flexibility. You have to give yourself a break, right? But maybe get outside more often. The weather permits, work out some more, but keep a schedule, get in front of your desk. And that's a big difference. Like I always also like to tell people, like find a way to just keep your skills fresh. So people say, what have you been doing? You've got something pretty good as an answer. Like before where I am now, like I did a startup with a couple folks, and on the side, I actually started a nonprofit with one of my sons. And like, it was just kind of a fun project, but it was a way to keep some of my other skills sharp and use skills that I like professionally to help out in something that I cared about personally. But whatever your venue is, like find ways to stay sharp. If it's volunteering, if it's just pursuing like free webinar type things and listening to them or to talk on them, anything like that, just, it'll keep your mind from going blank, it'll keep you from going a little crazy. Interviewing these days is different, whether it's with like chatbot kinds of things, AIs, or if it's just with people, because it's like my partner, she's interviewing somewhere right now. And like, she's like, job looks great, just got ghosted. What happened? These things happen a lot. People think that they're going to be able to hire, then something freezes, or they're really close to hiring somebody else, but they still want to interview a few more people. You just don't know. And you can't just trust that one perfect job opportunity is going to hold through. People will give you advice, try not to kill them for giving you advice, please. But know that that's a normal feeling, right? It's like my partner, when I was like, before doing some work in a startup, was like, you should work on your own. You should go out on your own. It's like, well, thank you for the advice. Now, if you could just give me 10 clients, maybe I'll do that. But it's like, whatever the advice is, or have you thought about going into this field or that field? Well, that's great, but I need to get a job right now. Maybe I can get into that once I'm already working and making money again. But I just want to bring these things up because like once you're in the throes of this, it's rough and you question your own value and you need to find things that are going to keep you active, keep you feeling smart and just, on top of it, right? So I just wanted to throw all that out real quick.
No, this is really good. And I echo what you guys have said as well. And I love the practical advice, you know, especially like what Elizabeth, what you were saying about the finances. It seems so obvious, but you know, sometimes we get carried away, right? We subscribe to everything.
Yeah.
So make sure you go back, and I forgot there's this app, actually, I have to find it and I'll put it online. But you know, just go back and make sure that you don't subscribe from all this rubbish that you probably don't really use or follow anymore or listen to. And yeah, just save money. Every little helps. But also just, you know, reach out to your network. I know sometimes, again, people wouldn't respond to you, and you know, they might just not check their LinkedIn. It may not be personal. So just be persistent. You know, if you can email them, email them. But you know, be proactive as well and reach out to HR folks. I've found that a lot of good relationships that I have now are just relationships that I proactively built, or people that have reached out to me and I've just kept it on for years and years and years. And some of them have never actually found me a job, but I've referred so many people to them, and you know, and the same way. So just, you know, be proactive, reach out, you know, go to the companies that you're interested in, look for their HR person or the recruiter in that area, reach out to them. You know, some of them respond, they actually would respond to you. And you know, again, if they don't respond, it's fine, you know, just keep moving. And going back to, I think, what Gretchen was saying, this is a great time to own your skills. You should own your skills anyway, but I know sometimes it's hard, life is hard. But if you suspect something or you've been laid off, you know, whatever the case, you know, go back and look at what you've learned in the last year or two, the last few years. What do you need to brush upon? If you're looking to get into a new area, I see Stacy was talking about doing product management. Go and take a look at that. And, you know, if that's something that you're interested in, you know, there's a lot of talk around sustainability and different things. If that's not something that you're aware of, go and read up on it and study and, you know, ask questions and attend workshops like this. Just whatever you can to just improve yourself, because that does open you up to more opportunity. And then, you know, last but not the least, real quick, I'll say is, you know, take a look at like the freelance websites. You know, that's also a good way to build your confidence. You can make money on the side. Just, you know, you can work on a little project for a client, you know, whatever you can do. You can make a little money, you can improve yourself, you can add that to your resume, like Gretchen was saying. There's no knowledge that's useless. I sit on 4 different boards and they're completely different. And I've still found that, you know, I'm able to still transfer a lot of what I learned from all the other boards into, you know, each of the different things that I do. So, so guys, listen, I know this is stuff again that we hear all the time, but you know, it will work, you know. I promise you, you'll get there.
So it's kind of like one last thing around kind of finding that right position. What is the importance, especially right now, in tailoring the skills that you present to the job that you're going for or that you're applying to? You know, this is one of those things where it's like a balancing act of like, you know, now you can do the auto apply with Indeed and LinkedIn and everything else. But, you know, how often are you hiring someone who put a cover letter, tailored the resume? Do you even notice? How important is the resume? How important is the LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, I want to take that one because I read thousands of resumes. Like, I don't even know how many hundreds of thousands I've read. So here's what I would tell you. That's the biggest question I get from my clients. Let me make it very, very simple for you. You're going to go to the ad, right? You're going to see the ad. It's going to be like, we're great. We do this. This is what we do. And then there's another, and it says, hey, this is what the job's about. And then you go down further and it'll say qualifications. Okay, you got to have those by law because then they can invite you into the applicant pool. So make sure those are there. But I will tell you, all that stuff's already on your resume. Go down to desired. They're looking for a specific something, snowflake, whatever it is, you know, whatever it is. That is the stuff you want on the skill section on the top of your resume and then sprinkled in the resume 2 or 3 times. People do read resumes, not ATMs. People actually read them. And that's the quick and dirty to get yours to the top of the pile. I'll tell you something else. When I was in search the last time, I had a couple of big name banks courting me, and I was getting really close to an offer. It was a Sunday morning, and I said to my husband, I'm going to go to Starbucks and apply. And he goes, what for? You're barreling down an offer. And I said, you know what? I don't have anything until I got an offer in hand. It's all just pipe dreams, man. I'm going. And don't you know it, I applied on a Sunday afternoon and I got the call Monday morning first thing. So I would say, like, when you apply to is when that recruiter actually can open up the back end of the ATS and start to look and hunt for candidates. So Sunday's a great time to apply, even if it's in the afternoon, because then you're popping to the top of the list on Monday morning. So that's another quick and dirty tool. So I would tailor, but it should not drive you crazy and it should not take you hours.
Are you going to read a 5-page resume, Elizabeth?
No, I'm going to read. No, and they've proven that actually. They've actually scanned a person's eyeball on a resume or on a LinkedIn profile. And so what they're going to look at is your name and your contact at the top very quickly. Think about your brain. What they're trying to get in less than 30 seconds is who, what, where, why, when. So they're going to grab that contact information. They're going to look at the company and they're going to think, how large is that company? They're going to look at time. They're going to look at a couple bullet points and down. So really, they're going to look at company name, title, and how long you were there, and kind of skip to the next. And then I always read the very last page, the very last paragraph. I'm curious about interests. I'm curious about things like that. Not so much about education. Certifications are a big hot thing. You know, I'm in cyber. Been in cyber a long time. I'm looking for their certs. If they didn't put them at the top or in letters after their name, it should be both places. So I'm looking for that too.
I will absolutely read a 5-page resume. If every other resume I'm getting is like a page, I'll be like, oh, this is exciting. You know, so you don't want your you do need to have all those keywords in your resume, but you also don't want it to look like everybody else's resume exactly. So, you know, if you want to give the detail because nobody else is giving it, it's going to get attention, you know. So it's not really bad. Like I usually have a fairly stylized resume, and I've had interviews where people are like, first of all, I want to compliment you on your resume. It's really cool looking. I'm like, that's cool. And if somebody notices that, I know we're gonna have a really fun conversation anyway. But so that's okay to like to not like stick with the same format as everybody else, whether somebody coaches you to do that or not. Just make it your own, make it feel right for you. And that's way more important. When I coach people on resume writing, which I do a lot also, like, you know, I tell them that what I would do is, you know, you do want to have the important stuff on the front page up, you know, somewhere easy to read. I tell them that, like, I will take their resume, hold it in front of me. I will close my eyes, open them and count to like 3 Mississippi. And if I don't get everything that I really need as the most important stuff in that count of 3, I probably would put it aside. So while I'll look at a bigger resume, I should also very quickly go, is this like the right kind of person from boom, boom, boom? Like, do I see any, does it look like it's a really badly done resume? Does it look like they were just applying to anything? It looks like maybe it's right for them. But if I can't figure that out in 3 seconds, like, I'm going to put it aside. So it's okay for it to be unique. It's okay for it to be long or short or different. You know, if somebody's is landscape, you know, versus portrait, that's pretty wild. I'll take a look to see what's going on. Maybe they're just crazy, or maybe there's a reason. I don't know, or both. But I would look, you know, so just I would keep that in mind too.
I think the ladies have covered it, but just remember, and again, hopefully we all know this, but make sure you have the right stats, make sure you're able to quantify your accomplishments, very important. Don't underestimate that. Don't just write, you know, a bunch of job titles, you know, try to really quantify your accomplishments, put some data in there if you could, you know, and where possible, separate yourself from the group. So there's, you know, try not to be a lot of, oh, I worked on a team, we did this, you know, what did you accomplish? What did you do? You know, how did you sort of, you know, help that project, so to speak?
I had a line on my resume the last time. It literally said, what I did, : literally. Because it was like, you know, it's very, I mean,
I love it.
Yeah, it was real clear. So I think simple is good. Punchy words are good. I mean, think about it. Your reader, you know, they read in 140 characters or less. I mean, that's really what we're up against. Everything's a soundbite now. So, you know, how do you get the most on that resume? Because the reality is your audience is going to be some that maybe like initial screen, the initial person that's going to read it, the hiring manager might be okay with 5 pages. And some of them want 5 pages, but you got to think about how am I going to make a good impact and be professional and do it in least amount of words, and just like write it for a 3rd grader. You can't go wrong, because you can always talk about your stuff in your interview. You're just, the only point of the resume is to get the call. It's not who you are. Doesn't say you're a good person. Doesn't even say if you're accomplished or not. The only purpose for the resume is to get the call. That's it.
My dad's a technical recruiter, and I think one of the biggest things that I learned from him was have a resume that provides more questions than answers.
Mm-hmm.
Does it go, ooh, how on earth did you do all these different things, but they all seem to be cohesive? How do I find out more, right? Or how do I direct you to more, or detail, or whatever that piece might be? I have my 1-pagers, like my 4 different 1-pagers set up to get you to go to my website, my LinkedIn, my GitHub, all that stuff. Because I want you to see the whole picture, not just the resume. And I don't want a place that's only going to look at the resume either.
That's smart.
But I have the benefit of being able to fill out a 3-page resume. So, if you only have 1 page, sometimes you only have 1 page. Make it a really nice page. So we talked about, especially, some of the things in terms of your profile, especially like, with regard to resumes. I think a lot of people don't pay attention to their LinkedIn profiles enough, especially because, that is like the first thing that so many people do is they immediately look you up. But one of the things that you talked about in your book, Elizabeth, and I did speed read it, at least your first one, as part of my things over the past week. What can you do, regardless, layoffs, anything else, in terms of setting yourself up to be able to walk away?
Believe in yourself. I mean, that just like comes right out of me, like instinctively, intuitively. I think you've got to have a strong sense of self, that you're going to be okay, and that this is a situation that may or may not happen, and that you're going to land on your feet. And that if you get yourself in a bad job and you don't like it, that you can get yourself out. And that if you're in a job and you're not being promoted, that you're going to figure out a way to get promoted, or you're okay to leave. So I think it's really about, you can do all that. I can do all that proactive stuff, but at the end of the day, your relationship with you is paramount. Especially for women. I coach women and they don't know they're underpaid. And like, I'm like 3rd session in and I'm like, well, you're $25,000 underpaid. And they're like, what? That can't be. How do you know that? I coach a man. I'm 30 minutes into session 1. He leans over the desk and he's like, Elizabeth, the market, how much can I get? I'm like, okay, well, how much do you need? Like, you're saying $250,000 and a nice bonus. Let's talk about that. So, I think it's about knowing you, feeling good about you. And I think the biggest thing, and you'll see me talk about it a lot, and you probably have, is to really mind the monkeys in your mind. What are you telling yourself about yourself? That imposter syndrome, that whole game, like, what are you telling yourself about yourself? Those are more critical than your skill set. I'll tell you a public secret. It won't be a secret anymore once I tell it, but it was about 13 years ago. I was at a ripe age where I could get, I call it alphabet soup, more letters after my name and certificates and this and that. And actually I didn't. I actually did self-improvement, and I really just focused on myself and just, why do I do what I do? What do I do? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Like really fundamental, deep core work. And that's what changed everything. That's what got me the promotion. That's what got me paid $25,000 more. It was that. It wasn't going to be throwing another cert at it. There's a point where you can grow to a point and you'll plateau because it's that other stuff that's now in your way. It can get in your way. There's a lot of competent women that are underpaid. Why is that? There's a lot of competent women that are not directors. They top out at manager. Why is that? I mean, we know all the statistics. It's really your relationship with you is the most powerful thing, because at the end of the day, when you go to sleep, you got to know that you're okay, that you can feed yourself, and that if the layoff comes, you're all right. And how you present in that workplace, that you're okay with it, not about what everybody else thinks. So I mean, I know that's like answering, not answering, but what I see in my coaching is that is a core element. Making friends of the mind, mastery of the mind, being able to sit in your own skin. Core. And it's hard, man. It's harder than the cert. It's much harder than the cert.
Diana, Gretchen, any comment?
I honestly don't remember what the question was. So I guess not. I don't know. What was the question?
Basically, how do you set yourself up to walk away, to, be able to be altogether whole or become altogether whole? One of the other things that I kind of think about is like always have, some money in the bank for rainy days and, or pursue your passion, whatever. But
Yeah, I mean, if you have a safety net, of course, it's great. I mean, not all of us are in positions like where we're privileged to have that, right? So, and we've probably all been in positions where we don't have that safety net. Count your friends, make sure that you've, you know what your safety net is. Maybe it is a padded bank account. Maybe it's really good friends who've got your back. Maybe it's family. Maybe it's none of those. Maybe you just need to really be prepared to apply immediately for unemployment, which you should probably do anyway. So it's just like, I think like Elizabeth's saying, cutting expenses is awesome, but know what your safety net is if you have one. If you don't have one, it's just like negotiation. What's your BAT now? What's your best alternative to negotiate an agreement? Like if all fails, what happens next? Can you wait tables? Can you do this? Will it make a difference in your income needs? I think that nobody feels whole after a layoff, no matter how much you're told it's not you or anything like that. But it's I think it's just like, yeah, the personal work is important, and just making sure you don't dwell on it when you're talking to potential firms that are going to hire you, and just making sure they feel that you're ready to move forward too. Nobody wants to hire somebody that seems to come off like as having a grudge. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably what I would say with it.
Well, thank you. And we are kind of at time here. So I wanted to give each of our panelists the opportunity, and we'll just go in order that y'all were presented in, if that's okay, which I believe is alphabetical. Alphabetical order, according to last name. Actually, I think it also works in the other way. Anyway, Diana, what are you up to? Where can we find you? What are you wanting to tell us about?
Thank you. First of all, ladies, listen, I've enjoyed the time. I've learned so much. I always, anything that I do, I'm involved in, I always want to make sure I take notes, I write something down, because, you can never know everything. You can never know too much. So, and sometimes even if it's just repeating what you know, that does help, right? So I really enjoyed, hanging with all of you, and even those of you that I can't see because you're virtual. I'm humbled. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening, and thank you to my other two panelists. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Elizabeth, please don't look at my LinkedIn profile. I'm joking. You can find me on LinkedIn, and listen, if you're laid off or if you just want to make a connection, whatever, just reach out. I'm here, whatever I can do. I'll be more than happy to introduce you to, recruiters or anybody that I know, because, we're all in this together. And I just want to say this, we've talked about so many different things, and I like that we're kind of ending on our being, being who we are, being true to ourselves, understanding ourselves, and really just having that sort of, we can call it mastery, we can call it self-awareness, just believe in yourself. Honestly, I know it's easier said than done because you're sitting on the other side of the screen and you've just lost your job, and maybe you don't have a cushion, and right now you're just like having so many interviews or even trying to get interviews and nobody's even calling you back. So I'm sitting here saying, you got this. You're like really dying at, do I got this? But no, you got this. And I'm more than happy to be a resource, and just, believe in yourself. And remember, when you do get that phone call, that means somebody actually thought that you could do the job. So you're literally, almost there. Then it becomes subjective on your side and on their part. And, we talked about this, and I remember from my previous, role real quick, I actually said to my then, manager, I was like, listen, I'm also, trying to make sure that, you guys are the right fit for me, that we work well together. So don't be afraid of that. That's not just for executive level positions or director level positions, or senior manager, make sure that the values of the company, the people that you're speaking to, the people that have interviewed you through that process makes you feel good. And, if it doesn't make you feel good and you don't have a cushion and you feel like, okay, I don't have a choice, that's fine. Do what you have to do, but keep your eyes open. You might be able to move internally. You might be able to, do something else, but just really think of yourself, because honestly, one of the things that I found that has helped me being an entrepreneur in the last 2 years is really just that self-awareness. I've had to do so many things, and we can have a whole panel to discuss the journey of being an entrepreneur, and I've still managed to just keep it all together. And just because I believe in myself, and I'm very much aware of myself, and I know my power, and whatever that is, if it's I do what I call brain breaks, right? So I do like sometimes 30 minutes where I just shut everything down, and it's just 30 minutes, but it's been a huge improvement in my life. So find your little thing, your little niche, like Gretchen said, if it's taking a walk, if it's, your circle of friends, whatever. If you have no friends, don't worry, I could be your friend. Just do whatever works for you to stay sane, because there's always going to be, something going on. And even when you get the job, there's going to be politics, all kinds of stuff. But so just focus on you. And, if you need to get a therapist, why not? If you can get it, if you need to get a coach, do whatever works for you. But just remember, like, I think like Elizabeth said, I really want to just own in on that point. It's really all about you. I don't want you guys to think, it's about every single detail that we shared here. And if I do all this, it's going to work and I'm going to be whole. You could be making $1 million and you're still not whole. So take it from me, I run a business and I have to deal with so many people. So, but anyway, like I said, you can catch me on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to connect. Whatever I can do, stay safe out there. And, and it's a great honor to be on this panel. And hopefully, I'll connect with you guys soon enough. Yes, and it's free of charge.
And let's go next with Elizabeth.
Well, I love these kinds of groups, and I'm a huge proponent of women in tech, big, and women in payments. So if anybody on this call or hits a recording, if you want me to do a resume review, we can set a time, a 15-minute call. I can look at it, give you feedback, pointers, and go from there. I'm happy to do it. I always extend my network. It's all in LinkedIn. And it's right on the front line. It'll say, this is not tied to any employer. These are my thoughts and my views. So it's really mine. And it's the network that I built over the years. and I'll connect anybody, if you just want to set a time and just network, do you know anybody at this company? Do you know anybody at that company? Are they good? Are they bad? What have you heard? What do you know about this, this company in Dallas? Are they laying off? Whatever. I'm more than happy to share any and all of that. And then I am speaking some other places. So I'll invite you to if you're in transition, I can invite you to some of the other events. I'm doing like another 6 or 7 of them in the next 2 months. So anything that I have to offer, I'm happy to give to you. I would like you to check out my site though. I'll put it in the chat, lionsology.com. There's some good stuff on that. But the best place to connect with me is definitely LinkedIn. And I was just so thrilled when I got this email saying, hey, would you be a panelist? I'm like, oh my God, you bet. Like, this is so awesome. I haven't spoken to you or seen you in years. And I'm just so thrilled. I'm just so thrilled to be here. And I just believe in all of you so much. And I believe in, women coming together and helping each other on this way. It's awesome. So thank you for having me, truly.
I'm just going to quote Olive Garden and say, when you're here, you're family. Meaning, like, if you're already on this call, you've got a group of people to lean on. You've already taken the right steps to really reach out to people. And obviously everybody here is happy to connect, happy to reach out. If you see that any of us are connected to anybody else you need to connect to on LinkedIn, that's great. But you're already part of this, and that's fantastic. So I'll leave you with that and unlimited breadsticks.
Well, thank you all so much tonight. It's been so energizing. I feel like we could talk about this forever. And I want everyone to know that, like, there is absolutely what everyone has said. There is opportunity, just might not be in some of the areas that you initially think. Rejection rates are high, but also, it's the same way when you're dating, right? Like, it's just now we're all used to swipe left before we swipe right, But the other difference is that, back in the day, you were applying to like maybe 20 places. Now you're applying to 50, maybe even 100. Right. And you only need, a certain number to hit the right thing. I've got a couple. I'm very blessed. I have a few in contention right now, but it's one of those things where, you might get a little discouraged. Throwing it out there. I started interviewing in December because I knew it was going to happen. I knew I was going to be, because, I did my job and I'm expensive. Both of those things mean that they had 6 months of runway and 6 to 12 months of runway. I'm expensive. There you go. Done. It's very easy to make that decision. So, and with all of these kind of FANG places, long interview cycles, you get to the end. I had 5 of them have a layoff after I had completed the onsite. Like, one of them the afternoon before the morning layoff. Or you had just completed the whole thing. And that sometimes hurts because you're like going, is it whack-a-mole? And yeah, it might be whack-a-mole, but you know what it means? It wasn't meant for you. Because at the end of the day, it all works out in the end. And if it didn't working out, it in the end.
Yep.
I totally agree with that. You can't have the job that doesn't belong to you. You just can't.
Yep.
And there's a job that you can do that no one else can do. There's something you can do that no one else can do, and that is called your talent. I mean, it's the karma's unfolding. I don't even know how. It's just can't be more direct than that. It's just what's happening. It's not you. And thank God you didn't get that job, Stacy, because 30 days later you would have been laid off. I mean, we think we know something and we don't know the absolute of everything.
Oh, I had a very good idea. I had nothing but public information to go off of, but I'm also the person who knows exactly how much I'm touching money. what the revenues numbers are tied to my position, and I leverage that as part of my job. I also leverage that to get the money I want.
Right, exactly.
Right.
We could talk about this in like how to be a junior executive 101. But know how you're touching money is one of my big things. Anywho, again, we could go on forever. Thank you, everyone. And I appreciate each and every one of you so very much. Diana, Elizabeth, Gretchen, just amazing advocates all across the board, reaching out, helping people, helping the world, helping bring in diverse workplaces. I mean, I couldn't ask for better mentors for everyone here and for myself as well.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, guys.